Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to a quick review of a watch that is undoubtedly my best AliExpress pickup of 2022. You don't have to buy these on Ali, by the way, if you're not inclined to. The brand does sell them directly, but ironically, you do pay a bit more that way. I will of course leave links to both in the description of the video. So what is it? Well, it's a sweet vintage military chronograph, very much in the Dirty Dozen tradition, by Baltony. They refer to it as the S205033, which I admit is not all that catchy. These are $140 US on Ali after coupons, or $170 on their website, and that's before you start adding taxes, of course. Honestly, I am struggling to find much fault in it at that price. It looks fantastic. The crystal is amazing, it's well finished, it's solidly constructed, the lume's really good, it's generally great. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Perhaps you can tell I'm even more excited than usual today by this little Baltony. I buy a lot of watches and I've been most impressed with this one. I think it is a fantastic all-rounder and it's hard to make it look bad. I mean, some watches I review, I really struggle to make them look good. This little guy looks fantastic regardless of the light conditions, regardless of the viewing angle. I think it just looks spectacular the vast majority of the time. Super legible, clean, crisp, and a fantastic bit of sapphire. Really sets the whole thing off. Now, I bought mine on AliExpress. I actually paid $155, so it's nice to see the prices dropping rather than going up. I got a stamped, dated 2-year warranty. I did note that if you do pick it up from the Baltony website, you get a 3-year warranty, so factor that into your purchasing decision if you're keen on one of these. Nice package overall though. Little spring bar removal tool, a branded polishing cloth and an instruction manual. You'll see though, I have already taken it off the NATO strap. That's probably the only thing I'm going to complain about today. I'm not a big fan of NATO's. I'm particularly not a big fan of that one. I put it on this Barton Elite silicone. I reckon that adds to its versatility, a cracking all-rounder as mentioned. I think they've properly nailed the whole mid-century vintage military Dirty Dozen look with this thing as well. I love the white, crisp Arabics, 1 to 5 and then 7 through to 11. And I love how they have 14 of those little triangular markers and the big handset. Super legible, this thing. Really very impressive. Lovely set of dimensions on it as well. 39mm in diameter, 11.7mm thick with a 45.5mm lug to lug. Now that sounds a lot like the Seagull 1963, but the Seagull has 18mm lug width, this one has 20mm lug width. On the supplied NATO strap it weighs in at 72 grams, on this Barton silicone it weighs in a smidge over that at 75 grams. 316L stainless steel 3-piece case, fixed bezel and screw-on case back, all bead blasted. Again, a really nice choice there I think. No fancy brushing or polishing anywhere as a consequence, but it looks good. Unsigned crown, but it's a big and grippy crown, screw down, 100 meters of water resistance. Those chrono pushers are screwed down as well. That's why I've got it on the rubber. I've been swimming with this one already a couple of times, no problems at all. So I'm prefacing the minimal moans and niggles section early today. I'm going to complain about the NATO. The only other thing is sterile caseback. Yeah, it's okay for a military chrono. Might have been nice to have a few details here, but yeah, can't really complain too much. Movement is a Seiko VK61 Mecha Quartz. That means a 60-minute chrono timer up there at the 12 o'clock and a permanently ticking small second down there at the 6 o'clock. Love the symmetry on this one. They've even fairly tastefully branded it with Baltony and Chrono. I don't mind them sticking chronograph on here because it keeps the whole thing nice and symmetrical. So one push to start, one push to stop, one push to reset, and it will tick 5 times per second, so you can in theory measure down to 1/5 of a second, and that outer perimeter track is graded to the 1/5 of a second as a consequence. Right, let's have a brief look at the dial and hands back outside then. I think the proportions on this one are spot on. Those numerals are big, but not so big as they look cartoonish. The handset is just about the perfect size, and the colour tones really work well. It might have looked a bit much if they had chosen to 14 of the numerals as well, but keeping them nice and crisp and white really adds a point of difference. So they've slightly recessed the 2 sub-registers at the 12 and the 6, branding kept to a minimum as noted, and the high polished silver sword hands with syringe tips. And another point of interest, and also help with legibility, they do catch the light rather well. Tiny splash of colour, the diamond tip of that chronograph hand. Everything is just printed, but it's really nicely done, and plenty of lume after dark too. I wasn't really expecting much from the lume of a $150 AliExpress watch from past experience. Very pleasantly surprised by the lume on this one. Now, the white numerals on the dial are BGW9 filled, and all of those photinid markers and hands are C3 old radium filled. C3 old radium never lasts, Jody, I hear you say, but do not worry. When I turn the speed up, you'll see the numerals are still glowing very brightly at the end of 20 minutes, but so are the hands and so are those painted indexes as well. Very nice. Looks really good on wrist, I think, and you can see what I mean. Those high polished silver surrounds to the hand, just adding an extra element and making those hands really jump off the dial from certain angles. Where's the crystal? Yeah, lovely, lovely piece of sapphire. Again, unexpected at the price. Now, I did dump the NATO. I highly recommend these Barton Elite Silicones. No association, no affiliation. I pay for them myself and I have bought a number of them. This one, perfectly colour matched. Look at that. It's got that photinid underside picking out the hands and the indexes perfectly. Overhead legibility is also fantastic. The numerals, big hands, all working very, very well together. And that's that outside wrist roll again in natural light. You can see the anti-reflective undercoating working very well to keep the dial legible even in bright conditions. So I've told you my complaints already. The NATO is okay. The hardware is actually better than the nylon. The nylon feels a bit thin and papery, even though it isn't actually thin. But if you're into NATO straps, chances are you have dozens in the house already just itching to go on this watch, so it's no great loss. And they've clearly saved a few dollars by not doing anything fancy with the case back, but if those dollars have been spent elsewhere on the watch, I'm okay with that. Now, I think there's a valid comparison to be made to another $150 military retro chronograph from AliExpress, that being the Seagull 1963, of course. This one has sapphire. It also has a Seagull column wheel mechanical chronograph movement, so on paper at least a more interesting and more historical movement than the Seiko VK61 soulless mecha quartz in the Baltony, but only 30 meters of water resistance, so I ain't taking that one swimming, and a much higher failure rate than the VK61, so a different choice I think, and personally I see no reason why not to have both. So if you haven't already guessed, I am really impressed with this Baltony chronograph. It looked great from the photos in the listing, and it looks fantastic in the flesh as well. A clean and legible design that doesn't go overboard with retro, I don't think. A lovely piece of glass, 100 meters of water resistance, and a reliable Seiko chronograph movement. Stick it on the strap of your choice and enjoy. So there you have it, a real sweetie this one. It will not be my last Baltony pickup if they're all this good. The most obvious alternative to this one is the Seagull 1963, or if you want a super cheap mecha quartz chrono, check out this Pagani. Thank you all for watching this one. I hope to see you again in a future video.